Now the car you're looking at might look like just any other Audi A8L, but underneath this sleek black form lies a whole host of security measures that make this one of the safest cars in the world. This Audi A8L Security is actually qualified for VR9 and VR10 level security, which is the highest that a production car can attain today. If you're a dictator, if you're a state head, if you're a highly influential industrialist, or if you're just somebody who's managed to upset a lot of people in the course of your life, well then this is the car that you need to go for. The Audi A8L Security is the latest armored tank made in-house by Audi that offers VR9 and VR10 levels of ballistic protection. Short of a direct asteroid hit, the car can provide protection from a variety of assault weapons, hand grenades, and even chemical attacks. Now before we get into the details, just to give you a little context, the reason this is a left-hand drive car is because Audi India imported it directly into the country at the request of the Indian government during the recently concluded G20 Summit, and it was vehicles like these of VR9 and VR10 level security that were used to ferry around state heads and dignitaries. Why? Well, that's the most important question, and let's actually start with this door. Now each door in this car weighs over 160 kilos, and that's because there is an electric auxiliary battery lodged in each door in addition to the two other ones to carry out a whole variety of electronic functions, chiefly managing this window, which the thickness we can't really go into, but it can withstand VR10 level of ballistic fire, which makes it even more secure than the shell, which is only certified for VR9 levels. Now VR10 means that high caliber rounds like 7-8mm rounds can actually be deflected off the surface. Another really interesting part is that these windows aren't really meant to be rolled up and down, and usually for security purposes they almost always stay shut. But should a more benevolent and well-loved dignitary want to wave or interact with people around, they can do that. However, if somebody gets any funny ideas and they put their hand in for whatever reason, they are not going to get it back, because when this window rolls up, the hand, unfortunately, or well, fortunately, and in this instance, gets crushed. Now you're thinking 160 kilos, in case the vehicle is for some reason immobile, then how do people get out? Well, there are actually bits of dynamite lodged inside these, and only the passenger and the driver are privy to the kind of button that they have to press in order to ignite those. And once that is done, this door is blown clean off its hinges straight onto the floor, at which point they can make a quick, hasty exit. And the sound that this door makes is very unlike what you get with standard luxury cars. There's just a finality to its thud. Several components on the A8L Security, including the suspension, have been recalibrated to accommodate the 4.5-ton curb weight of this car. And that's just the start. The A8L Security is extensively field tested by security specialists who subject the car to sniper rounds, rapid fire from high caliber assault rifles, and of course hand grenades. And the A8L Security just keeps on rolling. Now I know what you're thinking, what good is all that armor if the tires are blown clean off? Well, there's some good news there as well, because these are what are called PAX tires, and even when deflated, they can run for about 80 kilometers at 80 kilometers per hour. The idea being that in any hostile environment, the overall area doesn't happen to be that much. And the idea with a car like this is to essentially get the VIP inside the vehicle as far away from that hostile spot. So these don't actually have just air inside. There's actually a whole structure inside which can allow it to run even when completely deflated. Sadly, ejecting doors and flame-throwing nozzles aren't part of the A8L Security's arsenal. This is a purely defensive measure and not an offensive one. Its prime objective is to provide top-shelf military-grade armored protection without compromising on the superlative luxury of an A8. So we've covered hand grenades, we've covered snipers, we've covered ballistic rounds, but this thing is actually designed to withstand even chemical attacks. Now, in the instance that a poisonous gas has been released and it somehow manages to find its way inside, there are actually pressurized oxygen cans which can sort of filled this vehicle up with clean air, and it works in such a way that the poisonous chemicals are kept from entering and just sort of perforating through the cabin. In addition to that, of course, as you can see at the back, it's just like pretty much any standard A8L, and that's because they needed to be sure that this works as a luxury car just as much as it does as a security vehicle. In fact, it's a shade better because powering this thing is a 4-litre twin turbocharged V8, the same one that you find in an Audi S8, and it produces about 571 bhp. And you might think that with a 4.5 ton car, how quick can it really be? But quick getaways happens to be something of a speciality for this vehicle, and it can actually go from 0 to 100 in over 6.5 seconds, which is actually really quick. And unlike the most popular armored car of our times, which is the US President's Cadillac Beast, this isn't actually limited to 100 kilometers per hour. Its speed has actually been limited to 210 kilometers per hour. Now, of course, you're going to burn through fuel at that point, but the idea behind it, like I said, is just to make a quick getaway and get the VVIP from the hostile area to the secure one. Even up front, there isn't much distinguishing it from a standard A8L, other than a few buttons which, if pressed, would cause the pyrotechnic system in the doors to activate and blow the doors clean off their hinges. Now, the A8L Security hasn't actually been launched in India. These cars are already plying on the road, and there are some VVIPs who currently own it. Of course, Audi won't reveal their identity. But if you are to tell one of these apart from a standard A8, there is actually a blue light and there's some strobe lights here that will tell it apart, because in length and every possible other dimension, this is the same. It just weighs twice as much as a standard Audi A8L, and it was launched, the latest version was launched last year, not surprisingly, in Russia. 1,200 components have been specially engineered by Audi for this particular vehicle, and it took approximately 400 additional man hours as compared to a standard A8L in putting together a vehicle like this. It comes, of course, in various specifications and levels of security, but the starting price for one of these is rupees 12 crore. Some bits are obviously not visible, so there is an actual communication box inside that also gets an armor plating, and the idea is that should you be cut off from all normal forms of communication, there is an emergency communication box that you can use to send out SOS signals and whatever other form of communication you want to give out. Now, you're wondering, if a car like this is plying on Indian roads, how do you service it? Well, Audi has trained technicians for this car. Audi even undertakes training for security drivers, because a vehicle like this requires special training. And in addition to that, should something be missing, should something be required, Audi has a whole safety team. So from medical personnel to specialized engineers, just one quick call and the brand has people with working visas who are ready to take a flight into the country or whichever location they're required to. A sizable fleet of A8L security vehicles comprises a nearly 130-odd fleet of armored vehicles brought in specially as luxury security transport measures for G20 delegates and state heads. Audi has actually been making armored cars for the last 95 years and they've gotten really good at it. But what you see here is the pinnacle of armored technology, at least the one that isn't custom made. Of course, there are levels of specifications which one can go for, but these are produced in multiple numbers as per the requests that Audi receives. Of course, it takes a lot longer to produce this car, hence the price tag. Heavy lies the head that wears the crown, and heavier still is the car they drive. And so the A8L Security is one of the finest examples of security vehicles that you can get in modern times.